What happens when you stumble upon a thread that was never meant to be seen? A message left by someone who never thought anyone would find it? The web is full of secrets, and some are buried for a reason. Tonight, LurmoStories will guide you through the darkest corners of the internet where some things don't stay hidden. Stay close, because once you begin, there's no turning back. Don't say we didn't warn you.
I picked up the closing shift at the Maple Ridge Animal Shelter because I needed the hours, not because I liked being the only one in the building after 10 p.m. The place was different at night. Quieter, sure, but in a way that felt too deliberate, like the animals were waiting on something I couldn't hear. The lights in the kennel wing ran on motion sensors, so when I walked down the center aisle, each row flickered awake in a staggered line. The dogs usually barked at that, a whole chaotic wave of noise, but tonight they barely made a sound. Half of them were standing, facing the same direction, toward the isolation rooms at the far end. I checked my clipboard. No animals were supposed to be housed back there. Quarantine's been empty since Monday. When I walked past Kennel 12, the shepherd mix, Grace, pressed herself against the bars and let out this low, breathy sound that wasn't quite a whine. More like she was trying to warn me without making it obvious. Her eyes kept shifting to the end of the hall, then back to me. "Not now," I muttered. "I've got meds to finish." But she didn't move, not even to sniff the treat I slipped through the bars. I continued down the aisle, pretending I didn't feel that creeping heaviness in the air. A couple of the dogs had their fur raised. Some paced in small, tight circles, over and over, like their bodies were trying to shake off whatever they were sensing. When I reached the double doors to isolation, the motion sensor above them clicked, but the lights didn't turn on. They only flickered once, a short, nervous stutter, and then stayed dark. I checked the switch. Nothing. Every other hallway was fine. I told myself it was a wiring thing. The building's old and the county refuses to fix anything unless it's actively burning down. Still, the air past those doors felt colder, like stepping into a walk-in freezer. I wasn't planning to enter, not alone, not with every dog in the place acting like they were bracing for something. But on my way back to the meds room, I heard a sound from inside isolation, clear enough that it wasn't just pipes or settling foundation. It was the distinct clatter of a stainless steel feeding bowl skidding across tile. All the bowls had been stacked and washed hours ago. I turned, watching the dark seam between the doors. The noise hadn't been distant. It had come from the very first room on the right. And then, almost too soft to catch, something brushed the bottom of the door, metal scraping on metal, slow and deliberate. None of our animals could have been inside, and whatever was in there was trying to come out. I radioed the supervisor on call, but it only crackled like the battery was dying. I'd charged it before my shift. The building felt even quieter than before, like the animals were holding their breath right along with me. When I approached the isolation doors again, Grace started barking. Sharp, panicked bursts, nothing like her usual soft temperament. A couple other dogs joined in, but not in a normal chorus. Their barks were scattered, frantic, like they were reacting to something moving that I couldn't see. The metal scrape at the base of the door repeated, this time heavier, like weight shifting against it. The bottom edge of the right door bent inward for a moment, just slightly, as if something leaned its full weight against it before easing back. No animal we had could push steel like that. I slid my keycard into the panel just to check the lock status. The light blinked green for a brief second, unlocked, then switched to red on its own. The panel beeped 3 times, the way it does when someone overrides it from the inside, which shouldn't be possible. I took a step back. Another sound came through the door. Not a bowl this time, something wet. A dragging sound, slow, sticky, like someone pulling a soaked blanket along the tile. It moved from right to left, passing by the window, except the window was pitch black. Even with the hall lights on, I couldn't see inside, not even the faint reflection of my own face. The nearest thermostat clicked. The digital readout dropped from 68 degrees Fahrenheit to 59 degrees Fahrenheit in about 2 seconds. The dogs began pacing again, all at once. The nails of a dozen paws scraped in tight circles against concrete, an anxious staccato echo rising up around me. I forced myself to go to the small desk beside isolation and check the intake logs, even though I already knew what I'd find. The page for room ISO 1 was blank. No animals, no notes, no staff signatures. But there were marks on the edge of the paper, thin, dark streaks, like damp finger trails. My hands started shaking so badly I could hardly turn the page. When I did, something shifted behind the door again. Not loud, just decisive. A single, heavy thud, followed by breathing. Human breathing. Slow and uneven, like whoever was inside hadn't used their lungs in a while. I backed away from the doors and bumped into something soft. One of the dogs, a pit mix from Kennel 3, had slipped out. I must not have latched the kennel gate properly in all the commotion. She wasn't looking at me, though. She was staring at the isolation doors, frozen in place, ears pinned flat. Then, every light in the kennel wing went out at once. Not a flicker. A hard, deliberate blackout. In the darkness, the breathing behind the isolation door grew louder. And then, for the first time all night, it spoke. Not words, but a low, rough exhale that carried shape, like someone trying to force sound through a throat that had forgotten how to make it. Something on the other side whispered, dragged out and shuddering, "Open." The blackout didn't stay total. Emergency strips along the floor clicked on with a thin red glow, just enough to outline the kennels and the double doors to isolation.
The pit mix pressed against my leg, trembling so hard I could feel it through my jeans. The thing behind the doors exhaled again, a broken, rattling pull of breath. My instincts said run, but the animals were trapped. The thought of leaving them in the dark with whatever was in that room made my stomach twist. I reached for my phone to use its flashlight. It didn't turn on. Screen dead. The motion sensors weren't resetting either. The only light was that thin emergency strip, and it was slowly dimming. The dogs had stopped barking, all at once. Every kennel silent, even Grace. That terrified me more than the darkness. Dogs don't coordinate like that, not instinctively. I stared at the seam of the isolation doors. A shadow moved behind the tiny, wired glass window. Not a shape, just the suggestion of one, like something was standing too close, blocking even the emergency lighting. The pit mix beside me gave one low growl. Then the door handle twitched. Not from my side, from inside. Someone pulled it downward, slow and deliberate, testing it. The metal let out a strained creak. The lock held for a moment, then gave a tiny hitch, like something inside the mechanism shifted. I grabbed the nearest thing I could find, a metal IV pole from the supply cart, and held it like I was ready to swing. My hands were numb, but the pole felt heavy enough to buy me at least a second. The handle stilled. Silence. Then a single knock. Not loud, not forceful, just asking.
Every hair on my body stood up. I stepped backward, bumping the cart. Something rolled off it, one of the stainless feeding bowls, and clattered across the floor toward the doors. The moment it hit the metal, the figure inside shoved against the door so violently, the entire frame jolted. Dust rained from the ceiling. The pit mix yelped and bolted down the aisle. The impact didn't stop. Another slam followed, then another, each heavier than the last. The doors bowed outward. The screws groaned. The frame whined. Whatever was in there wasn't trying to get my attention anymore. It wanted out. I ran for the front hall, shouting for the dogs to follow. Most did, charging, scrambling, slipping on the tile. But some stayed frozen in their kennels, staring at the isolation wing like they were waiting for something inevitable. I was halfway through the lobby when the final crash echoed through the building. The kind of sound metal makes when it gives up. The dogs that followed me crowded the exit, digging at the door, whining, trying to push through the glass. I fumbled with the lock, managed to get it open, and shoved them outside into the cold. I turned back only once. The emergency lights in the kennel wing were out completely now. Just darkness stretching down the hall, swallowing every shape. But I could still hear movement. Slow footsteps, wet dragging. And that breathing, not rushed, not panicked, steady, purposeful, growing closer, as if it was following the warmth the dogs left behind. I slammed the exit door and held it until the lock clicked. I didn't see what came out of that room, but the next morning, when the supervisor arrived and we checked the building together, all the kennels were empty. Every single dog, the ones that ran and the ones that stayed, gone without a trace. Except Grace. She was in Kennel 12, lying in the exact same position, eyes fixed toward the isolation wing. And when I stepped closer, I saw the streaks on the floor leading to her gate. Long, dark marks, like something had reached into every kennel, one by one, and dragged them out. The stadium always looked different after hours. During the day, it was just a beat-up high school field with aluminum bleachers and a half-dead scoreboard. But at night, it felt too open, like the darkness was watching from every corner. Coach Miller handed me the keys around 9:40 p.m. Locker rooms, bleachers, sideline trash. Lock up when you're done. Don't use the south tunnel. Motion lights are out again. He didn't wait for me to answer, just walked off toward the parking lot, mumbling something about budget cuts. I'd done these cleanups a few times, but never alone this late. There'd been a county rivalry game, so the place was a mess. Bottles, snack wrappers, a couple jackets people forgot. The usual. The air still smelled like turf rubber and sweat when I unlocked the maintenance gate. The overhead field lights were off, but the emergency strips along the lower bleachers were on, giving just enough glow to see the outlines of the seating rows. The wind was barely there, but the flag over the press box kept shifting, like someone was tugging it from below. I started with the home bleachers. Nothing weird, just the echo of my own steps and the metal creaking under me. I was stuffing a pile of nacho trays into a bag when something clattered on the opposite side of the stadium. Not loud, just sharp enough to make me stand still. Probably a raccoon. That field was basically their cafeteria. When I moved to the visitor bleachers, I kept hearing it. Something knocking, then stopping as soon as I turned my head. Not animals scurrying, more deliberate, like metal tapping metal. I tried calling out, "Maintenance, stadium's closed." My voice bounced around the empty field and died somewhere near the scoreboard. The south tunnel, the one coach told me not to use, was just a dark rectangle under the seats. Even in dim light, it felt wrong, like it swallowed the reflections around it instead of showing any. While I was picking up cups near the 50-yard line, the stadium speakers cracked for half a second. Just a dry pop. They weren't even powered. I checked my phone, thinking maybe someone triggered Bluetooth by accident. No notifications. No signal either, which was weird. You could usually catch a bar or two near the press box. Then I heard it again. Metal, slow, dragging. I thought maybe someone from the team was messing with me, so I shouted louder. "Not funny! I've got keys! I'll call security!" Silence. Then a single sound answered from inside the south tunnel. 3 knocks. Even. Spaced. Not echoes. Replies. I backed up to the center of the field, telling myself it was pipes settling, or a homeless guy looking for a place to sleep. But the knocks came again, this time closer, like whoever made them stepped forward. A gust of wind rolled across the turf, but the flag didn't move, not even slightly. That made less sense than anything else.
I tried calling Coach, but the dial wouldn't even start, just an error screen.
When I looked back at the south tunnel, something was different. The emergency strip lights near it, the ones that always stayed on, were dimmer, like the tunnel was pulling the light inward. And then I saw the first movement. Not a shadow. Shadows move with light. This moved on its own, low to the ground, like someone crawling, but trying not to scrape their knees. A dry sliding sound followed it, rhythmically, as it came right up to the edge of the tunnel. I held my breath without meaning to. A hand came out. Not a monster hand. That would have been easier to understand. This looked like a normal human hand, but wrong in its stillness, pressed flat against the concrete with the fingers spread wide. Too wide, like the joints bent differently. Then the knocks came again, but this time they weren't from inside the tunnel. They came from directly behind me, on the metal railing of the bleachers. 3 knocks, the same pattern. And the hand on the concrete slowly curled a finger inward, like signaling me to come closer. I didn't go closer, no one would, but I also couldn't make myself run. The hand stayed there on the concrete edge, fingers slowly flexing, like it was testing how they worked. The emergency lights around the tunnel dimmed another notch, and the field felt colder even though the air was still. The 3 knocks behind me stopped, but the metal railing kept vibrating, like something had hit it harder than the sound suggested. I forced myself to turn around. Nothing on the bleachers, no movement, no people, just the rows of seats disappearing into darkness at the top. But something about the layout was off. On the home side, the aisle lights looked normal. On the visitor side, every other one was out, making a pattern like steps leading downward. The crawling noise returned, that dry, low dragging, as if skin was sliding over concrete. When I turned back to the tunnel,
The hand was gone. Not retracted, gone. The concrete was bare. Something shifted under the bleachers. Metal groaned, then went silent. I backed toward the 50-yard line, keeping both sides in view, but the lights on the south end flickered hard, one by one, like they were being smothered under a thick cloth. I forced out a whisper. "Who's there?" Something answered, not with words, but with the sound of cleats tapping on turf. Slow, measured, coming from the far end zone. I could see nothing there except the open gate leading to the field equipment shed. The taps stopped, then started again, but closer this time, right on the painted white line. The footsteps weren't heavy. They sounded like someone pacing before a kickoff. Steady, focused. My radio, the old one clipped to my belt, crackled on by itself. It wasn't even charged.
A faint voice pushed through static, too warped to understand, but the tone sounded like someone calling plays. Quick bursts, urgent. The field lights, all of them, blazed to full brightness without warning. Every bulb snapped on at once, flooding the turf in harsh white. My eyes watered from the shock. But in that brightness, I could finally see the end zone clearly. No person, no footprints. Just something sitting upright on the bench near the equipment bags. A helmet. Not the school style, older. Leather panels strapped together, dark and cracked. It hadn't been there before. I hadn't seen anyone carry it in. When I stepped closer, it tipped slightly, like someone nudged it from the other side of the bench. Then the field lights shut off, all of them. Instant black. My eyes couldn't adjust fast enough. Static hissed through the radio again. The voice returned, clearer this time, whispering something directly into my ear that the speaker wasn't that loud. "Stay off the sideline." The message cut. Something ran across the turf. Not jogging, sprinting. Fast enough that the air shifted as it passed. I heard cleats tearing through the grass near me, then veering sharply around the 30-yard line. Another set of knocks slammed against the underside of the bleachers, strong enough that the whole structure rattled.
The emergency aisle lights flickered back on, but every one of them was pointed toward the center of the field, like spotlights, casting long shadows in all directions except the south tunnel. That place stayed darker than before. The radio clicked again, a low voice, breathless, like someone speaking through grit. "Don't look away." I didn't know what it meant until I realized something. The shadow behind me was growing. Not stretching from a light source, growing upward, like it was rising from the field itself. The shape didn't match mine. Broader shoulders, a bent neck, the outline of a helmet, and breathing right behind my ear. The breath behind me was slow, dragging, like whoever it belonged to wasn't used to lungs anymore. I didn't turn around. The radio's distorted warning repeated in my head. Don't look away. But staying still felt worse. The emergency lights circling the field dimmed again, shrinking their glow to thin halos under the seats. The turf around me darkened until the 50-yard line was the only stripe I could make out, faint and gray. The shadow behind me twitched, its shoulders rolling forward as though adjusting pads that weren't there. The tapping of cleats started again, but this time not running, pacing. A circle around me, invisible except for the sound. Each step sent a small vibration through the ground, as if whoever was walking weighed more than a person should.
The south tunnel exhaled a gust of air, warm, foul, like it came from a place without sky. The emergency lights nearest to it blinked twice and went dead. The dark spread outward along the bleachers like spilled ink. The voice on the radio cut through the static again. "Midfield, don't step off the line." I didn't know if the voice was trying to help or just leading me where it wanted me, but staying put wasn't an option. The shadow at my back bent forward sharply, like it was lining up for a tackle. I forced myself toward the 50, 1 foot at a time. Something followed close behind, its cleats digging into turf with a wet crunch. Not grass, something under it. Halfway across, the field lights flickered once, giving me half a second of vision. That was enough. The thing following me wasn't walking. It was dragging itself in short bursts, like its joints only worked in one direction. The leather helmet was fused to the shape of its head, the straps sinking into skin that looked swollen and gray. Its mouth hung open too wide, but no sound came from it, just the breath. Darkness swallowed it again as the lights died. I stepped onto the 50-yard line. The air shifted instantly, still cold, but steadier, like whatever roamed the field couldn't cross this stripe.
The shadow behind me stopped growing. The pacing continued along the edges of the midfield stripe. Fast now, agitated. A second set of steps joined it, then a third, like more of them had come onto the turf. But none crossed the painted line. They circled, cleats scraping, radios crackling with old play calls and broken whistles. Then the helmet on the equipment bench slammed to the ground. A metal screech tore through the stadium, echoing under the bleachers like someone ripping a locker door off its hinges. The tunnel lights flared, just for a breath, and I saw movement inside. Figures, several, crawling over each other, contorted, pressing against the concrete as though trying to force themselves out. The voice on my radio cut through everything. Leave the field. I didn't have to be told twice. I moved along the 50, not daring to step off it, until I reached the gate to the parking lot. The figures followed parallel to me, shoving against the midfield boundary as if something held them back. Their hands clawed the turf, but the line remained untouched. When I reached the gate, the midline ended. Nothing protected me anymore. Behind me, the cleats dug in. I ran. The stadium lights thundered back on all at once as I crossed into the lot. I don't know if they turned on by themselves or if someone hit the breaker, but the field behind me froze in bright white. Empty. No figures. No helmets. No crawling shapes. Just untouched turf and the south tunnel sitting open and black. Coach Miller's truck pulled in moments later. He stepped out, annoyed. "You're still here?"
Thought you'd locked up an hour ago. I tried to explain. The shadows, the knocks, the tunnel, everything, but he held up a hand. "Kid, don't do overnights alone. That field's had incidents. You hear stuff, you leave. Simple." He didn't ask what I'd seen. He acted like he already knew. Before we left, the stadium lights abruptly shut off again, all of them at once. Coach didn't look back. "Get in the truck." I did. As we drove off, I glanced at the field one last time. The tunnel entrance was barely visible, but I could still make out a single hand resting on the concrete, palm open, fingers spread wide, like it was waiting for me to come back and finish the job. I took over the night shift at the Crosswind Motor Lodge, mostly because no one else wanted it. The place sits right off Route 19, the kind of road where the gas stations close at 10 and the sky feels heavier than it should. The lobby's old glass door rattles whenever a truck passes, even if it's half a mile away. Management calls it character. Most nights are dead quiet. A couple of travelers, maybe some college kids on their way to Nashville. Nothing unusual. But last Tuesday, around 1:12 a.m., a man walked in who didn't belong to any category I'd learned to expect. He didn't come from the parking lot. I didn't hear a car pull up. I just looked up from the ledger, and he was already inside, standing a few feet from the desk. No footsteps, no door chime. He was tall, but not freakishly so, wearing a gray jacket that looked like it had been folded in someone's basement for years. Not dirty, just forgotten. His hair was short, neat, but his eyes were the strange part. Not wild, not angry, not drugged. He looked like someone forcing himself to act normal. "Room for one," he said. His voice was controlled, like every word had to pass through a filter before it left his mouth. I did the usual. Credit card or ID? He slid a stack of 20s across the counter. Crisp, all facing the same direction. I didn't touch them at first because his hand stayed there, pressing them down like he wasn't finished with the motion. After a second, he pulled back. "No card," he said. "We still need an ID," I explained. He lowered his head a little, not in anger, more like he was listening for something behind the walls. Then he said, "I won't be staying long." That wasn't an answer, but for some reason, arguing felt wrong. I typed a fake placeholder into the system and handed him the keycard for room 12. He didn't look at the card, just took it and walked out into the hallway. No luggage, no phone in his hands, not even a wallet. As soon as he stepped out of sight, every dog in the trailer park behind the motel started barking. Not the usual random barking, it was a chain reaction, almost synchronized. I didn't see anything through the back window, but the sound made the lights in the lobby hum louder. At 1:27 a.m., the security monitor for the hallway glitched. The feed flickered into static, then came back, but room 12's door was slightly open. I hadn't heard it open. I hadn't heard anything. Then the phone behind the desk rang. Line 12, the room he'd just walked into. I didn't pick up the phone right away. Line 12 kept blinking, steady and slow, like a heartbeat.
Usually when guests called this late, it was to complain about the AC or ask where the ice machine was. But the second I touched the receiver, the barking outside stopped. Not gradually, just switched off, every dog at once. "Front desk," I said. For a couple seconds there was nothing. Then a low rustling, not like breathing, more like someone brushing their fingers across the phone's mouthpiece. After that came a voice, but it wasn't the same voice the man used earlier. It sounded quieter, strained, like it was coming from farther back in the room. "Is someone already in here?" I straightened up. "Sir, did someone follow you in?" Silence again. Then a faint metallic tapping. 3 taps, evenly spaced, like a ring hitting the side of a metal bed frame. Then he whispered, "The mirror." The line went dead. I checked the monitor again. Room 12's door was wide open now. I grabbed the hallway keys, not because I wanted to investigate, but because it felt worse to stay in the lobby doing nothing. The carpet in the hallway had that stale motel smell, disinfectant over old cigarettes. Nothing looked out of place, except the air felt warmer the closer I got to his room. When I reached 12, the lights inside were on, but dim, like someone had taken out every second bulb. The door hadn't been forced, it just hung there, half inviting, half warning. I knocked anyway. "Sir, you all right?" No answer. I pushed the door open. The room looked untouched, bed still made tight, TV dark, everything arranged exactly like housekeeping left it. The keycard was on the floor, right in the center of the room, perfectly aligned with the doorframe. That stopped me more than anything. The mirror above the desk had streaks on it. Not smudges, streaks, long vertical lines, like someone dragged wet fingers downward. I touched one. It was cold. Colder than the air around it, almost refrigerated. I checked the bathroom. Empty. I checked under the bed. Clear. But when I straightened back up, there was a sound behind me. A soft click, like plastic snapping into place. I turned around. The TV remote was sitting upright on the dresser, leaning against nothing. I knew it wasn't like that when I walked in. A hollow knock came from inside the wall. Not the door, not the bathroom, the actual wall, between rooms 11 and 12. One knock, then another, then one more. 3 taps. Same rhythm as before on the phone. I backed into the hallway, waiting for a guest from 11 to complain. Nobody came out. Nobody said anything. The whole wing felt like it was holding its breath. When I got back to the lobby, the cash he'd given me was gone. Every bill. In their place, dead center on the counter, was the keycard to room 12. But the system still showed it checked out. I didn't touch the keycard at first. It was clean, perfectly clean, like it hadn't passed through a single hand. The system still insisted room 12 was occupied, timestamp unchanged, as if the man had never stepped out of the hallway. But the cash disappearing shook me more. There's no way anyone could have slipped in behind the desk. I could see the whole lobby from where I stood. At 3:06 a.m., the hallway monitor flickered again.
For one frame, just one, room 12's door was closed. The next frame, it was open halfway, but the angle was wrong. The door wasn't swinging, it was just in a different position. I went to check it again, but halfway through the hall, I stopped. Room 11's door was slightly cracked open. The lights inside were off. I knew the room was unoccupied. Housekeeping left it ready for the morning. The draft pushing the door open smelled faintly like dust and old cooling units. Then I saw it. A shape standing just past the threshold, not stepping forward, not stepping back. It wasn't the man. The height was wrong. This thing was shorter, shoulders too narrow, posture wrong, like someone trying to remember how to stand. I couldn't see a face, just an outline frozen in the dark. "Sir?" I managed. The figure tilted its head, not a smooth tilt, a stiff, segmented motion, like each degree of turn was a separate decision. I stepped back without meaning to, and the thing mirrored the movement, shifting backward into the deeper dark of room 11. Not walking, just appearing farther back than it had been a split second earlier, like someone had cut and replaced frames of a film. I turned to leave, but halfway down the hall, the lights buzzed. One by one, each fixture dimmed, following behind me, chasing me toward the lobby like a wave rolling shut. When I reached the desk again, the keycard to room 12 was gone, replaced with the room binder we keep for cleaning staff. It was open to a page that wasn't supposed to exist. A handwritten note, same tidy handwriting we use on maintenance logs. But the ink was too fresh, and the number at the top made my stomach drop. Room 0.
Occupied. Do not enter. There is no room 0. There never has been. Before I could close the binder, the phone rang again. No line number this time. Blank screen. I picked it up because letting it ring felt worse. A voice whispered, calm, patient, almost relieved. You checked him in. Then the line clicked. I ran a full system scan after dawn. All entries normal, no room 12 activity after midnight, no calls logged, no record of cash transactions. Management replayed the security tapes and told me the hallway feed for that hour was just empty corridor, no movement at all, not even me walking it. They didn't find the guest on any footage, not entering, not leaving, not standing at the desk. But when they opened room 12 for inspection, the bed was pulled out from the wall. Behind it, carved faintly into the drywall, were 3 vertical lines. Not scratches, deliberate, straight, measured. Almost like tally marks waiting for something to complete them. I worked one more shift before quitting. That night, someone slid a key card under the lobby door. Room 0, still cold to the touch.
Some stories never end, they just find a way back. This was LurmoStories, but the web holds even darker secrets. The next story, it's already waiting for you.